The river ran slow that evening, its surface glassy under the pale hush of twilight. Somewhere upstream, the air carried the faint scent of moss and rust. Sergeant Caleb Rourke's K-9 partner, Hera, tugged at her leash with unusual urgency, barking softly toward the bank. There, crouched in shadow, was a girl, drenched, trembling, and sobbing like the world had broken her. Her eyes held something Caleb could not name, something heavy enough to change everything he thought he knew about his quiet town of Ashford. She held out her hand, and what she showed him would haunt them all. The dusk in Ashford was the kind that seemed to hold its breath. The air hung heavy, damp with the scent of river mud and pine. The town was small, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and everyone assumed they knew everything. But Caleb Rourke knew better. He had been the town's lone lawman for nearly 8 years, and Ashford had secrets, buried deep under layers of quiet smiles and polite nods. Hera, his K-9 partner, a tall German shepherd with mottled brown and black fur, stood at attention, ears pricked, tail stiff. Caleb tightened her leash. The dog's gaze was fixed on a riverbank, where something or someone stirred. "You smell that, girl," Caleb muttered, pulling his jacket closer against the chill. Hera's growl was low, restrained, but it carried a warning. Caleb didn't like it. The road to the river was rough, a worn trail of gravel and mud leading from Ashford's edge. Caleb's boots crunched softly in the dirt. The forest closed in around them, trees leaning together as if whispering to one another. Somewhere nearby, water lapped gently against the bank, carrying a faint metallic tang. Ahead, the sound of soft crying cut through the quiet. Caleb slowed. Hera tugged harder. "Stay close," he murmured. He came to the riverbank, where the tall grass grew thick and wild. In a narrow opening in the trees, he saw her, a girl, no older than 16, crouched beside the water. Her clothes were soaked, clinging to her frame. Mud streaked her knees, and her hands covered her face. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Caleb's breath caught. Something in her stance, broken and fragile, felt like a warning. He crouched a few feet away, careful not to startle her. "It's all right," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." The girl froze. Slowly, she lowered her hands, revealing wide, bloodshot eyes that looked straight at him. They were wet, reflecting the darkening sky. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. Her voice cracked like dry earth. Caleb studied her. "Neither should you. What happened?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, her gaze drifted to the river, where shadows seemed to shift unnaturally beneath the water. Hera's growl deepened, and Caleb could feel the tension radiating from the dog. Finally, the girl spoke, voice trembling. I found something. You have to see it." She extended her hand, and Caleb noticed something wet clutched in her palm, something that glimmered faintly in the dying light. Before he could ask, she whispered, "It's why I came here." Caleb's mind sharpened. He glanced toward the small houses scattered behind the trees. No one would come here tonight. And that hand, he could feel her fear. It was deep, primal. "All right," he said quietly. "Show me." She stood, slowly, as if pulling herself out of some deep exhaustion. Caleb noticed a thin scar along her forearm, pale against her wet skin. She stepped closer to the river's edge, Hera moving beside her, growling softly but refusing to look away from her. Caleb followed. The moment their boots touched the grass at the water's edge, the river seemed to shift, a soft ripple like a breath. The girl held her hand over the water. Caleb's eyes widened when he saw it, a small, rusted locket. The chain was broken, the metal corroded, engraved with initials he didn't recognize. "I found it here," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "under the riverbank." Caleb reached for it, but the moment his fingers touched the cold metal, the girl gasped. She pulled her hand back, trembling. "Don't," she said. "It's not just a locket. It's them. They'll come if they know I have it." Caleb's pulse quickened. He studied her face, fear, desperation, something unreadable in her eyes. And then, far across the river, somewhere beyond where sight could reach, a sound broke the silence. Low, unnatural, a whisper of movement. Hera barked once. Then again, louder. Her stance shifted. The girl stepped back. You don't understand. You have to take it. You have to keep it safe. Caleb hesitated. The river murmured at their feet. Above them, the trees bent slightly in the wind. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, but not Hera. Caleb looked into her eyes, then at the locket. A slow, terrible certainty settled in his chest. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about her. It was about the whole town. He tucked the locket into his coat pocket. All right, he said. Let's go somewhere safe. The girl nodded, shoulders sagging with relief, but her eyes never left the river. Behind them, the wind rose. Somewhere in the forest, something stirred, and Ashford's quiet night was no longer quiet at all. The road out of the riverbank was quiet, but Caleb could feel the weight of the night pressing down on them. Hera's paws sloshed softly through puddles as she followed closely behind. The girl walked beside Caleb, shoulders bent, hood pulled low over her face. She kept her eyes fixed on the ground, and her breathing was uneven. Caleb drove them to an old hunting cabin on the outskirts of Ashford, a place he kept stocked for emergencies. It sat at the edge of a clearing, surrounded by pine and oak, the smell of damp wood, and earth thick in the air. Inside, the cabin was dimly lit by a single lantern. Dust floated in the pale circle of light. He gestured for her to sit. We need to talk, he said quietly. She shook her head. Please, not yet. I'm not ready. Her voice was fragile but edged with steel, like a blade hidden under silk. Caleb sat opposite her. Hera lay in the corner with her head resting on her paws, still alert. He studied the girl. Pale, soaked through, scarred in ways that weren't just physical. I need to know who you are, Caleb said, and what this locket is. She glanced at it in his pocket, eyes narrowing. It's not just a trinket, she whispered. It's a key. Caleb frowned. A key to what? She swallowed hard, her gaze fixed on the flickering lantern light. To everything that's been hidden here. To why people disappear. To why Ashford isn't what it seems. Caleb leaned back. Her words sounded like a story told in dreams, but the fear in her voice made it real. Start talking, he said. She drew a breath. My name is Alara. I'm from here. My family has been here for generations. But what we guard isn't mine to tell easily. The locket belonged to my grandmother. She told me never to touch it unless I was desperate. And tonight, I was... Caleb studied her. Why tonight? Her eyes flashed and she looked away. Because they were coming. That silence grew heavy between them. Caleb's instincts told him there was more to her words. Something dangerous. His eyes drifted toward the locket in his coat pocket. The metal seemed colder than it should be, and Caleb could swear he felt a strange vibration from it, as if it held a heartbeat. Suddenly, there was a knock at the cabin door. Caleb's hand instinctively went to his pistol. Who is it? He called. A voice answered, low, familiar, but tinged with something Caleb couldn't place. Caleb, it's me. Let me in. Caleb frowned. He didn't recognize the voice at once. The knocking came again, heavier this time. Hera growled low in her throat. Stay here, Caleb said to Alara. He moved quietly to the door, peering through the crack. Outside, in the darkness, stood Deputy Jonah Mercer. His face was pale, eyes fixed on Caleb. Something unreadable in his expression. What are you doing here? Caleb asked, pulling the door open a crack. Jonah stepped inside without waiting. We need to talk. Now. Caleb frowned, shutting the door behind him. It's late. What's wrong? Jonah glanced at Alara, then back to Caleb. His voice dropped to a whisper. It's about the river. And that locket. Alara froze. Caleb noticed a subtle change in her expression. Fear and something worse. Recognition. Jonah stepped closer. That locket isn't just an object. It's a warning. Ashford doesn't know what's coming. Caleb's jaw tightened. Then tell me. Jonah hesitated. His eyes darted to Alara, then back to Caleb. There are people forces that have been here a long time. They keep the peace, but at a cost. That locket, it marks you. Whoever possesses, it becomes a target. And it's why people vanish. Alara's voice cracked. I told you. Caleb looked between them, suspicion tightening his chest. Jonah glanced away. Caleb could sense something hidden, a truth neither of them wanted to speak. "What do we do now?" Caleb asked. Jonah's voice was grave. "We protect it, and we keep it secret, at all costs." Caleb glanced at Alara. "Do you trust him?" She hesitated. Her lips parted as if to speak, then closed. Finally, she said quietly, "I don't know if anyone in this town is worth trusting anymore." The three of them sat in silence. Outside, the wind rose, rattling the cabin's thin windows. Somewhere in the trees, a branch snapped sharply. Hera's ears pricked. Her growl deepened. Jonah glanced toward the door. "They're coming." Caleb stiffened. "Who?" Jonah didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a battered notebook from his coat, flipping it open. Inside were pages of names, maps, and symbols Caleb didn't recognize. At the bottom of one page was a crude drawing of the river, with the same strange markings as the locket. Alara leaned forward. "They've been watching me my whole life. They won't stop. Not until they have it back." Caleb glanced at the locket again. Something cold crawled through his chest. "Then we need to decide who we trust and how far we'll go to protect it." Outside the cabin, the river whispered, and the shadows were moving. The air inside the cabin was thick with tension. Outside, the wind had risen to a steady howl, rattling the thin wood walls. Caleb sat at the rough pine table, the locket heavy in his palm. Alara and Jonah stood by the door, watching him, their faces drawn tight with worry. "You're not telling me everything," Caleb said quietly. "What is this really about?" Jonah hesitated, his eyes flicking toward Alara. "Because if I tell you, Caleb, you'll understand why some things are better left buried." Alara stepped closer. "They'll kill us all if they get it. Caleb, the locket isn't just a key, it's proof. Proof of something buried under Ashford for decades. Something no one was meant to find." Caleb set the locket on the table. The metal caught the flicker of the lantern light, casting strange shadows. It felt almost alive. He looked at Jonah. "What exactly is it?" Jonah's voice was low, almost a whisper. "The river pact." Caleb frowned. "What?" Jonah took a deep breath. This town was built on a promise. Generations ago, there was something in the river, something ancient, a force. People made a pact with it for peace and prosperity. But the pact comes at a price, and the locket is proof of that agreement. Whoever possesses it becomes bound to it. Alara's voice broke. "And they've been coming for me my whole life. My family tried to protect it. But now, I can't." Caleb leaned forward. "Why me?" Jonah's eyes hardened. "Because you've been involved since the moment you found her. The moment you took her in. This isn't random. They know. They always know." Outside, the wind had turned into a storm. Rain pelted the cabin's roof, and the river roared in the distance like some living thing. Caleb's gut twisted. "Alara," he said softly, "why tell me this now?" She looked at him with eyes that were both terrified and resolved. "Because if we don't act tonight, Ashford will disappear." The door burst open. Water and wind rushed inside. A figure stepped in, tall, cloaked in dark fabric, face hidden. Caleb raised his pistol. Hera growled fiercely, stepping forward. Jonah froze. "It's them." The figure moved slowly toward them, voice deep and resonant. "Give me the locket." Caleb stood his ground. "We're not giving it to you." The figure's laugh was low, almost cruel. "You don't understand. It's not a choice." Alara stepped forward. "Then take it. But you won't take me." Her voice cracked with defiance. The figure raised its hand. The air inside the cabin shifted, a low hum rising like a living pulse. Caleb's skin prickled with dread. Hera growled louder. Suddenly, Jonah pulled something from his coat, another locket, nearly identical to Caleb's. "This is the real one," Jonah said. "The one in Caleb's pocket is the bait." Caleb froze. "What are you saying?" Jonah's eyes were cold. "I'm saying I lied. The pact was never about protection. It was about control. And Caleb, you've been carrying their mark without knowing it." Alara gasped. "Jonah, no." Jonah stepped toward the door. This isn't your fight anymore. Caleb, Ilara, run. But Caleb moved first. He grabbed the locket from his pocket and smashed it against the table. The sound was sharp, like breaking bone. Light burst from the fragments, filling the cabin in a blinding white. The figure screamed, recoiling. The wind roared, the cabin shook. When the light faded, the locket was gone. Jonah was on the floor, unconscious. The figure had vanished. Outside, the storm had stopped. The river lay still. Caleb looked at Ilara. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. What did you do? I destroyed it, Caleb said softly. Whatever was, it's gone now. They stood in silence. The only sound, the slow drip of water from the cabin roof. Hera rested her head at Caleb's feet, still alert. Caleb reached for Ilara's hand. She hesitated, then took it. We need to leave, Caleb said. Ashford won't be the same. She nodded. It's already changed. They stepped out of the cabin together. Into the cold light of dawn, the river lay quiet, a silver ribbon in the morning mist. Somewhere downstream, the water shimmered, not with light, but with memory. And Caleb knew the truth. Whatever had been in that river was not gone. It was waiting. Somewhere in Ashford, the pack still held. They walked away without looking back. The town slept, but the river did not.